Hey there! Welcome to the deep dive. Forget the noise and the endless feeds for a minute because we're about to really unpack something fundamental today.
Yeah, we're diving into how habits actually work.
Exactly. Why do some stick like glue and others just kind of fade away? We're drawing our insights today from some really foundational material.
Yep,
Excerpts from Atomic Habits by James Clear.
that's right. And our goal isn't just to, summarize the book. It's more about extracting the practical, usable knowledge
The stuff that lets you actually build good habits.
and dismantle the bad ones, yeah. Moving beyond just sheer willpower or like trying to magically find motivation all the time.
And there's an idea tucked away in these sources that feels, well, genuinely profound once you really get it.
Which one's that?
That maybe building better habits isn't just about hitting external targets, writing a book, losing weight, whatever. Maybe it's actually a path to becoming a different person.
It absolutely is. It's a total reframing, really, of what habit change is even about.
Okay, so let's jump right in. Almost everyone trying to change something, they run into this wall, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're putting in the work, you're trying hard, but it feels
Yeah.
like nothing's happening, just spinning your wheels.
Oh, yeah, that's incredibly common. And the source gives us a really helpful way to think about it. The plateau of latent potential.
Okay. Latent potential.
Yeah, imagine you've got an ice cube, and it's, say, 25 degrees. You start applying heat,
Right.
the temperature goes up 26, 27, all the way to 31 degrees.
Yep.
Now, you've done a lot of work, right?
Yeah.
Added energy.
Sure, but it's still ice.
Exactly. Nothing visible has changed. It feels frustratingly static.
Yeah.
But that energy, it isn't wasted. It's being stored. And then, boom, suddenly at 32 degrees.
It melts.
Right? The big change happens.
Yeah.
All that unseen work accumulating below the surface suddenly leads to this visible breakthrough.
Okay, so that feeling of no progress isn't necessarily failure. It's just the change is happening underneath.
Precisely. It's accumulating. And the source makes a great point about this. When that breakthrough happens, people on the outside might look and call it overnight success.
Right, like it just appeared out of nowhere.
But you know that jump was only possible because of all the work you did earlier when it felt like you were stuck on that plateau.
So the struggle isn't necessarily a sign you lack ability.
Often, it's just the necessary time spent building up that potential before you cross the threshold.
That really flips the script on feeling discouraged, doesn't it? It makes that unseen effort feel valuable.
Mm-hmm.
But if the goal isn't just melting the ice cube or hitting some external number, what's the real engine driving habits that actually stick?
Well, this leads us right into what the source identifies as a truly foundational idea: identity-based habits.
Identity-based. Okay.
Yeah, the core idea is that your habits are deeply, deeply tied to who you believe you are, your underlying beliefs about yourself. The material puts it plainly. Behavior that is incongruent with the self will not last.
Okay, that phrase, incongruent with the self. What does that look like in, real life?
Well, think about someone who says they want more money. They might try budgeting, saving.
Sure.
But if deep down they see themselves as someone who, loves spontaneous treats or really values comfort now, that saving habit,
Yeah.
it's going to feel like pushing a rock uphill. It clashes with their self-image.
Or someone wanting to be healthier, but they see themselves as someone who needs comfort food to unwind.
Exactly. They're trying to force a behavior that just doesn't align with the person they believe they are.
So it's less about having a goal like, I want to run a marathon.
And more about shifting to, I am a runner. That's the critical shift.
Yeah.
Moving from outcome-based habits, I want this result, to identity-based habits. I am this type of person.
That feels different.
It is. Saying I'm the type of person who is this taps into a kind of intrinsic motivation that just wanting an outcome, well, it can't really match long term.
Because it's about who you are.
Right. When you take genuine pride in an aspect of your identity, maybe being resourceful or disciplined or creative or healthy, you naturally want to do the things that reinforce that identity. That pride fuels the consistency.
And the source uses that great analogy about every action being like a vote.
Yes. It's one of the stickiest ideas in there. Every time you choose to read a page, you cast a vote for becoming a reader.
Go to the gym, cast a vote for being athletic.
Exactly. No single vote decides the election, right? But as you pile up those votes, day after day, through your small habits,
You build evidence.
undeniable evidence for this new identity. It's the accumulation of these tiny actions that provides the proof, the empirical proof, that your identity is actually shifting.
And that must build trust in yourself, too. Like, hey, I actually can do this.
Absolutely. When you consistently show up and cast those votes, you're teaching yourself you're capable. The story you tell yourself about who you are starts to change based on what you do.
Of course, bad habits cast votes, too.
They do. They cast votes for an identity you might not want. But the goal isn't like perfection. It's just about winning the majority of the votes over time.
So the practical process seems pretty simple then, like 2 steps.
Basically, yeah. First, decide the type of person you want to be.
Okay.
Second, prove it to yourself with small wins, with those daily actions, those votes.
And the exciting part is that identity isn't fixed, right? It's not set in stone.
Not at all. The source really emphasizes that you choose the identity you reinforce with the habits you pick today. It's ongoing. You're constantly defining yourself through your actions.
So deep down, building better habits isn't really about getting stuff or hitting numbers.
It's about the process of actively becoming someone new. It's the architecture of self-change, really.
Wow. Okay, that sets a powerful stage for the why. Now, let's get into the how. What's actually happening in the brain when a habit forms?
Okay, so the source breaks down the basic mechanics into the 4 stages of the habit loop.
The loop.
Yeah, this sequence, cue, craving, response, reward. It's the pattern your brain follows pretty much every time a habit runs.
Always in that order. Cue, craving, response, reward.
Exactly. The cue is the trigger. It's just a piece of information telling your brain, hey, a reward might be available.
Like seeing food or the notification sound on your phone.
Precisely. Back in the day, it was food, water, danger. Now, it's often that notification, the couch after work, walking into the kitchen. It predicts a reward is coming.
Which leads to the craving.
This is the motivational engine. It's the anticipation, the desire for the state change the reward will bring. You don't actually crave checking your phone.
You crave the potential distraction or connection.
Exactly. You crave the change in state it promises. That's the driving force.
And the response is just doing the thing.
Right. The actual habit. Opening the app, sitting down, eating the snack. It can be physical or even mental, like a thought pattern.
And finally, the reward.
This is what satisfies the craving. Crucially, it teaches your brain, was this action worth remembering? Should we do it again? It closes the loop.
And if any of those stages are weak,
the habit probably won't form, or it'll fall apart easily. The whole loop needs to be strong.
Okay, so understanding that loop gives us levers we can pull, and the source lays out these 4 specific laws of behavior change.
Yeah, basically ways to hack each stage of that loop to make good habits easy and automatic, and bad ones not so much.
Let's start with the first law, make it obvious. And the flip side, make it invisible. This targets the cue, right?
Right, the trigger. And the very first step here is just awareness.
You can't change what you don't see.
Exactly. The source suggests tools like a habit scorecard, literally just listing out your daily habits, good, bad, neutral, to see what you're actually doing.
Even the unconscious stuff.
Especially that. There's also this technique called pointing and calling. It's used in like Japanese railways. Workers point at a signal and say out loud, signal is green. That simple act brings a non-conscious habit into conscious focus.
Saying it makes it real. Okay, so once you're aware of the cues, then what? Change the environment.
That's the big one. Make the cues you want stand out. Environment design is key.
Because visual cues are so powerful.
Hugely powerful. Most of our sensory input is visual. So yeah, put your running shoes by the door, put the healthy snacks right there on the counter, not hidden away.
And for the bad habits, make those cues disappear.
Make them invisible. Hide the remote. Put the cookies on the highest shelf, maybe in an opaque container. Delete the social media apps off your phone's home screen.
Even just adding a little friction at the cue stage.
It can make a surprising difference. It forces a conscious choice.
What about changing location entirely? The source talks about the power of context.
Oh, that's a fascinating insight. Habits get really strongly tied to the places where you do them.
So it's easier to build a new habit somewhere new.
Often, yeah. Because you're not fighting all the old, ingrained cues from your usual surroundings. Trying to say, right in a new cafe might be easier than at the same desk where you usually browse the internet.
There's that really striking example about Vietnam veterans and heroin addiction.
It's incredibly powerful. In Vietnam, the drug was cheap, easy to get, and the environment, the stress, the boredom, the social norms, it was full of cues supporting use.
Right.
But when those soldiers came back home to a completely different environment without those cues, studies found something like 9 out of 10 just stopped. often without formal treatment.
Wow. Just changing the context broke the habit for most.
It really highlights how much our environment shapes us,
Yeah.
maybe more than we credit willpower for. The source suggests people with great self-control often just have better environments. They're
Yeah.
not constantly fighting temptation.
That's a game changer. Okay, let's move to the second law, make it attractive. This focuses on the craving stage.
Exactly, that motivational force. Cravings are driven by anticipation, and that anticipation feeling, it's heavily influenced by dopamine.
Ugh, dopamine, usually called the pleasure chemical.
Well, it's maybe more accurately the anticipation chemical or the motivation chemical. Dopamine spikes not just when you get the reward, but crucially, in the moments before you get it. That anticipation rush drives you to seek things out,
Like checking your phone or eating junk food.
or even basic needs like food and water. Habits that give a big dopamine hit during that anticipation phase become incredibly attractive, very compelling.
So, how do we use that for good habits that maybe aren't naturally thrilling?
One really neat technique is temptation bundling.
Temptation bundling. Okay.
This is where you link something you want to do with something you need to do. The source gives a kind of formula for it.
Like,
After my current habit, I will have it I need. And then the key part. After habit I need, I will have it I want.
okay, so after I pour my morning coffee, current, I will meditate for 1 minute need. After I meditate for 1 minute need, I will check Instagram, want, something like that.
Perfect. You use the promise of the want habit to pull you through the need habit. Or you could do them simultaneously, like only listening to your favorite podcast while you exercise.
Makes the necessary thing more appealing.
Exactly. Another huge factor in attractiveness is, unsurprisingly, social influence.
Right. Fitting in, joining a group where the thing you want to do is just normal.
Totally. We're wired to belong. Think about those Ash conformity experiments. People would literally say the wrong answer just to go along with the group.
Crazy.
We imitate the habits of the crowd, the powerful, the people we admire. So yeah, if you want to exercise more, join a running club or a CrossFit gym. Want to read more? Book club.
Find your tribe where the desired behavior gets you approval and respect.
That makes it instantly more attractive. And finally, you can work on your internal programming by reframing your mindset.
How so?
The source suggests a simple language shift, changing I have to into I get to.
I have to go work out versus I get to move my body and build strength.
Exactly. It shifts it from an obligation to an opportunity. I have to make sales calls becomes I get to connect with potential clients and solve problems.
Have to cook dinner becomes get to nourish myself.
It sounds small, but reframing exercise as building resilience or saving money as building freedom. It changes how you feel about the cue, making the habit itself more attractive from the inside out.
That moves us neatly into the third law. Make it easy. Focusing on the response now.
Right, the actual doing of the habit.
Yeah.
And the core idea here is that mastery comes from repetition, not from perfection. You just got to get your reps in.
Like practice makes perfect, but really it's practice makes permanent.
Kind of, yeah. The science backs it up. Hebb's law.
Neurons that fire together wire together. Every time you repeat a habit, you strengthen that neural pathway.
So frequency matters more than how long you do it each time.
Especially early on, yes. Frequency over duration. Our current habits, the automatic ones, they're paved highways from thousands of reps. New habits are like faint paths in the woods.
Need to walk them often to make them clear. Exactly. And think about the behaviors that often take over scrolling social media, watching TV. Why? They require almost zero effort.
So the goal for good habits is make them almost effortless too.
Reduce the friction.
Yeah.
Make them convenient. Environment design helps, again here, not just the cue, but the action itself.
Like having your gym clothes already laid out.
Yes. Or choosing a gym that's literally on your way home from work.
Yeah.
Prep your environment ahead of time. Think like those efficient Japanese factories using lean production. Remove every bit of wasted effort.
Make it harder not to do the good habit than to just do it. Optimize that decisive moment.
That tiny choice that makes the bigger action more likely, like just putting on your running shoes. Once they're on, you're probably going to run.
And the 2-minute rule seems tailor-made for this friction reduction.
It's brilliant. You scale down any habit so the starting ritual takes less than 2 minutes.
Read War and Peace becomes read one sentence.
Exactly. Do 30 minutes of yoga becomes roll out my yoga mat. The point isn't the tiny action itself. It's mastering the art of showing up.
It's the gateway.
It's the entry point, not the finish line. Like getting in a cab, not running the marathon. You just need to start.
Okay, now the inversion. Make it difficult. For bad habits.
Right. Add friction. A great tool here is what the source calls a commitment device.
A commitment device.
It's a choice you make now that locks in future good behavior or restricts future bad behavior.
Like Victor Hugo supposedly locking away his clothes so he had to stay in and write.
That's a classic, if extreme, example. Or simpler things. Buying snacks in individual packages instead of a giant bag. Asking a casino to put you on their banned list. Leaving your credit cards at home when you go shopping.
You make it physically harder to slip up later.
You increase the friction for the unwanted action. And the ultimate way to make good habits easy and bad ones hard. Automation.
Just set it and forget it.
Pretty much. Invest in tech or make one-time choices that automate good behavior. Automatic savings transfers are a perfect example.
Prescription refills, website blockers.
Healthy meal delivery services. Even the old cash register was a form of automation. It automated ethical behavior by making stealing harder for employees. Automation frees up your limited willpower for things that can't be automated.
Oh, I gotta be careful, right? Tech makes bad habits super easy too.
Oh, absolutely. Autoplay on Netflix or YouTube. Removes the decision point entirely. One-click ordering. Food delivery apps. The effort barrier is basically zero.
So you can just slide into low-value stuff without even thinking.
Exactly. When friction is zero, your immediate impulses often take over, pulling you away from the harder, more meaningful work. It's a real balancing act.
Definitely something to watch out for. Okay, that brings us to the final law, the fourth law, make it satisfying. This is about the reward stage.
And this one is maybe the most crucial for making a habit stick long-term. Repeatability.
Why is that?
Because our brains evolved in what the source calls an immediate return environment. See food, eat food. See danger, run away. The consequence was instant. But modern life, it's largely a delayed return environment. You work out now for health benefits years later. You save money now for retirement decades away.
And our brains aren't wired for that delay.
Not naturally, no. Instant gratification often wins because it satisfies that ancient wiring. The long-term benefits feel abstract, distant. Present you makes choices for present you, not necessarily for future you.
So the trick for good habits is to find some immediate satisfaction.
Exactly. While the big delayed rewards are accumulating in the background, you need something tangible and satisfying right now to keep you going, especially early on.
Which leads to the cardinal rule of behavior change.
What is immediately rewarded is repeated. What is immediately punished is avoided. Simple, but powerful. The first three laws get you to do the habit this time. This fourth law gets you to come back and do it again next time.
Okay, so how do we engineer that immediate satisfaction for, say, exercising or saving money?
Visual measurement and habit tracking are fantastic tools here.
Like moving a paperclip from one jar to another, or using an app.
Yeah. Seeing that chain grow, checking off a box on a calendar or spreadsheet. It provides immediate visual proof of progress. That is satisfying.
And motivating, right. You don't want to break the streak.
Exactly. That visual proof is also concrete evidence that you're casting those votes for your desired identity we talked about earlier. That itself is a form of immediate intrinsic reward.
But there's a catch with measurement, isn't there? A potential pitfall.
Yes, absolutely. It's captured perfectly by Goodhart's law. When a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure.
Meaning?
If you become obsessed with just hitting the number, the step count, the word count, the pounds on the scale,
Yep.
you can lose sight of the actual purpose behind the habit.
You might start gaming the system just to hit the metric.
Right. Maybe taking shortcuts that aren't actually helping you improve, just so you don't break the streak or miss the target. Measurement should guide you, not become the sole reason you're doing something. Not everything important can be easily measured, after all.
Good point. What about when you inevitably miss a day? Break the chain. Feels bad.
It does. But the source offers a really crucial rule for this. Never miss twice.
Never miss twice.
One missed day. It happens.
Mm.
Life gets in the way. It's an anomaly. The key is to get right back on track the very next day. Don't let one slip up turn into two.
Because two misses can become the start of a new habit. The habit of not doing it.
Exactly. The real damage isn't usually in the first miss, but in the downward spiral that can follow if you don't course correct immediately.
Okay. And for making bad habits unsatisfying immediately.
You need to add an immediate cost. This is where a habit contract can come in handy again.
Like an agreement with someone.
Yeah, a verbal or written agreement. Maybe with an accountability partner. You state the behavior you want to avoid, and you define a clear, immediate, and probably painful consequence if you fail.
I remember reading about a guy, Brian Harris, who had escalating penalties for not meeting weight loss goals.
Right. like having to donate to a cause he hated or wear a rival team's jersey.
Oh.
It works because it makes the consequence feel immediate, tangible, and painful. Our behavior is much more influenced by consequences that are local and concrete, rather than vague and distant ones like poor health later. You make the cost of the bad habit hit now.
So we've got the loop, the 4 laws for hacking it. What about sticking with it for the long haul? Getting to, like, mastery.
Yes, sustaining progress is its own challenge. The source touches on a few ideas. One is the explore-exploit trade-off.
Explore, exploit.
Initially, you should explore different options, try things out, different workouts, different creative outlets, different strategies, see what resonates, what works for you.
Don't just stick with the first thing you try.
Right. But then once you find something that shows promise, that gives you good results, you shift to exploiting it. You double down, focus, and refine that approach rather than constantly jumping to the next new thing.
Find what works, then really work it. Makes sense.
And related to finding your niche, there's the idea that if you can't win by being better, maybe you can win by being different.
How so?
By combining skills in a unique way. Scott Adams, the Dilbert creator, is the classic example. He wasn't the world's best artist or funniest comedian or sharpest business mind.
But he combined okay drawing, okay jokes, and business experience.
He did something totally unique that hit a nerve. He created his own game where his specific skill set was dominant. Sometimes finding your unique combination is the path.
That's clever. What about just getting bored? Progress isn't always exciting.
Yes. Boredom. The source is clear.
Yeah.
Mastery requires pushing through boredom. Once the initial excitement fades, progress often demands just showing up and doing the work, even when it feels routine or dull.
So successful people aren't always motivated.
They just show up anyway.
Yeah.
Consistency trumps fleeting motivation. They stick to the schedule even when they don't feel like it.
And keeping yourself engaged often means finding the right level of challenge, right?
Exactly. This is the Goldilocks rule. You want to work on tasks that are just manageable difficulty.
Not too hard, not too easy.
Right. Challenging enough to be interesting, but not so hard that you get discouraged. The sweet spot seems to be around a 50-50 chance of success. Enough wins to feel good and build confidence, but enough misses or challenges to keep you striving, wanting to improve.
Keeps you on the edge.
Variable rewards can also help here, adding an element of unpredictability that keeps things engaging, like in games.
And finally, looking back. Reviewing.
Super important. Top performers, whether it's athletes like Eliud Kipchoge or Katie Ledecky taking meticulous notes, or successful business people, they engage in regular reflection and review.
Why is that so critical?
It makes you aware of your progress, your mistakes, your blind spots. It helps you see where you can tweak things, where you can improve your system. Without reflection, you might just be practicing your errors or sticking with inefficient methods.
You need that feedback loop on the process itself.
Precisely. And one last point that ties back to motivation.
Hmm.
The source differentiates between wanting and liking.
Wanting versus liking.
Desire, or wanting, is that anticipation of the reward, the craving that gets you started. But pleasure, or liking, is the satisfaction you get from the reward. And it's the liking, the satisfaction, that makes you repeat the behavior.
So wanting gets you off the couch, but liking the feeling after the run makes you do it again tomorrow?
That's basically it. Feeling motivated initiates action. Feeling successful or satisfied sustains it.
This has been a really fantastic dive into the practical architecture of habit change, pulling heavily from those insights in Atomic Habits.
Yeah, we've seen how that 4-stage loop cue, craving, response, reward, and the 4 laws.
Make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, make it satisfying.
How they give us a clear framework for building better systems for ourselves.
And maybe more importantly, how at its deepest level, this isn't just about, optimizing tasks or life hacks.
No, it's about deliberately building the evidence, casting the votes for the kind of person you actually want to be. It really is about identity change.
That idea that every action is a vote for the person you're becoming, that feels like a really powerful lens to view your day through.
It shifts the focus dramatically, doesn't it?
Mm.
From just the outcome to the process of becoming.
So maybe here's something for you, the listener, to sit with after this deep dive. Thinking about your day, all those small, maybe seemingly insignificant actions you take.
Yeah.
How are those actions casting votes? What identity are you actually reinforcing, hour by hour, day by day? And is that truly the person you want to become?
Worth considering the power in those small choices.
Definitely. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.